welcome back to Math Partake. So this is just another video in the basic function series. And what you're looking at is a domain and range diagram. The left column of the diagram shows the domain, which are all the x values. And the right side of the diagram shows the range, which are all the y values. And your question is, does the diagram represent a function? So remember, every time you do a problem like this, you're going to look at it exactly how I explained. Let me just tell you what a definition of a function is. The definition of a function is a relationship between one or more variables where the x value does not repeat. So when we talk about the x value, remember, we're talking about these values that are on the left side of the diagram. That's what we're really focused on. In the end, your answer is simply going to say, no, this is not a function, or yes, this is a function. Let's take a look at example number 1. We have this domain and range chart. What do we do with it? Well, step 1, I'm really just going to write underneath it x and y. Just to remind myself that everything on the left side is an x and everything on the right side is a y. And the second step that we're going to do, we're going to create an XY table based on this diagram using the numbers and the arrows to where the X value connects to the Y value. Take a look. X and Y. This is the beginning of our table. Now we see on the left side that we have a 5. So that's our first X value. And that 5 has an arrow that's pointing to a 6. So the 6 will be our first y value. Then let's look back on the left side of the diagram where we see our second value is a 6. So we'll put our 6 with the x and the arrow points to the 5. You have to follow the arrows in this example. So we see here that we have a 7 and an arrow pointing to another 7. That's our x and y values. Our x value here is 8. Our y value here is 8. So we have an 8 and an 8. Now, next step, we're going to look at our XY table, specifically the values that are on the X column, and we're going to see if any number there shows up more than once. If a number shows up more than once, then that means that this is not a function. If a number only shows up one time, then that means the x does not repeat and it is a function. So let's take a look. We see a 5 and there are no other 5s. We see a 6, there are no other 6s. We see a 7, there are no other 7s. Now remember, we're only talking about in the x column. We see an 8, there are no other 8s in the x column. So the x doesn't repeat. And that means that yes, this is a function. And that is your answer. Now take a look at this example. Of course it says, does the diagram represent a function? Our diagram is a little different this time. If you look in the range column, you see that we have a negative, we have a letter, and we have a decimal. But guess what? That doesn't matter, because all we want to know is if it's a function or not. And we can follow the same process that we did in the first example. Our first step, we're going to mark our domain and range as x and y. So these values represent x's and these values represent y's. The next step is we're going to create an XY table. X, Y. So the first X we see is a 1, and that goes to the first Y, which is the 3. The next X we see is a 3. And we have an arrow pointing to an A in the Y column. So let's make an A. And then we have the 3 pointing to a -1 in the Y column. Well, how do we do that? I'll give you 5 seconds. Now check it out. what we're going to do is we're going to write another 3 in the x column, and we're going to make that go towards -1 in the y column. Then we'll go to our 2, and that's connected to a 2.5 in the y column. That completes our XY table. Now our final step is to look at this XY table and decide whether or not we see a repeating X value. And I think automatically you can see that, yes, X has a 1 and there's no other 1s in the X column. X has a 2 and there's no other 2s in the X column. But X also has a 3, and we see that there's another 3 in that X column. So that means the X repeats. And when the X repeats, no, this is not a function. Not a function. And that is your answer. Listen, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to leave a comment below if this helped you, and subscribe to receive new math videos every single week. I'll catch you next time. Peace out.